Well, hello. Happy New Year. I've started a project here of building a frame for my old printer, and a 2-week job has turned into a 2-month job plus because either sitting on my hands or not making decisions or run into problems. It's taken me a lot longer to finish this than I had anticipated. So I don't know that there was a lot of scope creep. I don't think I've really changed anything from what I originally intended to do. It just ended up to be more problems and more decisions than I thought I already knew the answer to. So it's taken longer, and it's working out pretty good. It's not quite ready yet, but I think it's going to be here within a week or so. It should be ready. I've got to finish up the doors in the front, and I've got to finish the one side panel here in the top, and then figure out what kind of framing I want to do for the top hat in the front. It's going to be open there. There'll be a door or something that, before I used acrylic and I had slots on here, and I would slide the acrylic in there to close off the top of the chamber. That works fine. I don't know that I really need a door with a hinge up here on the top, but I do want to have some hinge doors here, and I want 2 doors. I want to have 2 doors in the front vertical. They don't have to be full cover doors. They may be frame doors and may have some acrylic in them, so there'll be 2 windows here basically. I haven't quite gotten there yet to figure out what exactly I'm going to do with it. The whole reason that I changed this printer was because of the top halo was warping, and the frame it was affixed to was really not. I mean, it was a Sapphire Plus frame to begin with, and I had just put on top of modifications and modifications. So I really wanted to start fresh with the frame and use all the old parts that I had. And I didn't want to just start with a new frame, a year ago. I kind of wanted to do more testing and get more experience with different hardware and things like that to know what I wanted to do. Like the Z system, I've changed the Z system on the old printer at least 4 times. I had the Hydra, I had a 2 screw, I had a 3 screw, I had a 2 belt, I had a 3 belt. I had, tried so many different things that I just was not happy with, and I ended up settling on this Z system here, which is that 1PZ system that has the knuckle in the back there. Let me turn some lights on here. We've got that knuckle in the back that's got a truck U-joint in it that allows pivot this way, and it allows pivot this way, but does not allow it this way. And it is very, very rigid. It's very impressive, the rigidity of this bed. Very, very, very impressive to me. So all of this machine now has been welded. The upper frame is welded. The 2100 is welded. The top hat is welded. And it makes a huge difference. There's no plates on this top hat. There's no flat plates. There's no 90-degree corner braces. None of that. And this frame is, you could lift the whole printer with this top frame here. Okay. So I got the 1PZ in here, and we're 290 by 420 on our volume. I've got some springs that hold it down against these plates here, and this thing can move around from heat. There's no coupling here, and the motors are not enabled right now, so those springs are pulling that up. So that's what I went with there. I do have some floor matting in here right now just to see how it would look and how it fits, and I don't know if I'm going to keep that in there or not. It depends on how hot I intend to get the chamber. This stuff is only good for a certain amount of temp. It's around, I want to say 90°C, maybe a little less than that. They did say that it would contract a little bit and so I'm not sure if I'll go with that, but I do like the look of the black. I think it looks pretty awesome like that. But I do have insulation and sound deadener that's good to 200C, that's foil backed and sticky backed on the other side. I'm going to put that in there to cover everything up anyway. I'll even have it here on the top. I'll have that same sound deadening material to kind of cut down on some of the noise. This printer is 41 inches tall from the top hatch here down to the bottom, and then there's another 12 inches higher than that with the filament dryer. The top is hinged, so there's easy access to see, change filament, get your hands in there and work if you need to. The front is going to remain open. There'll be some sort of sliding acrylic that'll probably go in the front. I don't quite know what exactly is going to happen with this. So I went with long shaft motors so I didn't have to use couplers ever again. That's my goal anyway, provided the couplers were not providing some sort of dampening for VFA. I don't know that yet. We're going to have to see. It does feel more noisy when it moves slow. It feels like there's more motor resonance. I'm kind of worried about it, actually. That was one of the reasons why I didn't progress as much, is because I worked on the Gantry and had problems with the with this rail here, and I noticed that it was vibrating when moving slow. But I've already printed something with it, and it prints pretty decent actually. So we'll have to see how that goes. But there does seem to be more noise than before. So I went with the same Gantry as the old machine, you know, other than I did change all four corners. They've just got the long shaft motor in double shear with stop collars here, so the bearings stay in their pockets and the shaft doesn't walk up and down, at least for this one. I've got this stop collar here. So that's what I've got on all of them. And each one of these mounts is universal. This can go to there and so forth. They're all the same mounts. I've got the belts pulling from basically the center of the carriage. Don't know if it matters. Thought, why not? I've got a lot of belt hanging out here because I'm using these spindles with a slot in the center of them, and I have to put these belts together like this from the other side and push them through, and then pull it tight, and then rotate this to tension it. And I don't know right now what the minimum length is I can have here, so I'm going to have to do another assembly of this and find out, you know, where I can have this, and then find a place to tuck this away. Unless of course I change yet again to another tensioning system. Tensioners are the most pain in the butt thing, and I would have liked to offload these to the motor blocks, but then you got a whole nother set of problems, you know. And I don't know, this is very simple. It's a little heavier. I mean, the machine tests over 30K acceleration. I don't know, you know, do I need more? I don't know. It's enough, I think. So, you know, this is not going to kill me here. I can live with that. I did have a lot of problems with this beam. This beam here is the one that's going to let you know how bad off you really are. Because this one here, if your rails are mounted on plane, this one's not too hard to get to where it'll run really smooth. So Core XY is pretty easy to me to set up, because it only has, you know, these two rails here. But with the cross, adding this guy here, you can get screwed over so easily, and you'll know when you put this one on how screwed you are, because you can have an angle in this tool plate where that carriage is mounted. You can have a standoff here that's just the wrong height, or they're not even between both of them or all three of them, whatever you seem to have there. And it can make alignment of this extremely difficult. And in my case, I made this spindle here, and I had the rail sitting on it on the previous build, and when I turned this I had to flip it 180 in the lathe and face off this other side here. And when I indicated it in on the chuck, apparently it moved and I didn't catch it, and so now the height variably changes slightly on this, which was influencing the rail position, which would cause the carriage to go into a bind when I tightened it down. So I have now split this, and I'm going to cut this rail here. I've already tested it with a shorter rail. I didn't want to cut the high wind rail, so I cut a spare rail, and I think I tested about 4 different iterations of this block. Finally came to the split block, which I'm going to raise up. Anyway, I'm going to raise this up so I can raise this belt up as close to this rail as possible, so that the belt's pulling from where the most mass is. I'm only going to be able to move it up about maybe 10 millimeters, but it should make a difference. And that way I'll be able to raise this up. This rail won't be in the way. I'll be able to adjust my tension without having to decouple this rail, which I had to do in the past. It wasn't a big deal because once I set these tensioners, they don't move after the initial tension of a belt. They'll move, but then once you tighten them that second time, they don't typically move after that. So I don't really have to get in there very much, and it really didn't bother me too much to have to do that. But now I'm doing it because this thing, with all these standoffs in here, when it was one plate, you had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 standoffs. If any one of them is wrong, it can cause a slight change in that, and then all of a sudden that rail is off the other end and you got binding. So splitting it into this guy, I only have to deal with 3 standoffs, and I'm working, by the way, on making an adjustment so I can adjust the height of this rail on the machine. I'll get to that later. But so I need to remake these. It'll print the way it is now. It works great. But I just want to go ahead and take care of this, hopefully once and for all. I am running the VZhextrudort instead of the worm. I want to start off with something I'm used to. I don't want to introduce. I haven't used the worm a lot. I've used it, I mean, at least a month at least, but I want to go to something that I'm familiar with and I know that's going to work. So that's what I've got. I've got the Chube and the VZhextrudort. I've got a tool board on the back here for my wires, and I don't have a whole lot of wires here. Another thing that I noticed on this build is I left the jacket on the wires inside this loom. I left the jacket on this multi-conductor cable, and I assembled it, and man, it was stiff. I mean, you could feel the tension of that pulling on that toolhead bracket, and I didn't like that. So I pulled this back out and I stripped off that outer casing of that multi-conductor cable and just ran them inside this flexible stuff here. That's how I had it before on my old printer. It was just like this, and I tried to use the PVC jacket. I shouldn't be using PVC in there anyway, but once I took that off, boy, what a difference that made. So I'll eventually change all the wires in here to silicone. I have it, I just haven't got to it yet. So, but this works really good. This is really nice and light. I don't like to couple all these together because I don't want that one mass to be in that one spot. I'd rather kind of separate them, and that's just kind of what I like, my preference anyway. So I'm using GT3 9mm belts. Those are coming off, and I'll be going to 12mm EDPM. I don't care for the GT3 that much. They just seem to get marred marred or distorted. You can see like lines on them, and I never saw that with the old belts. I never had that. It seems to be okay here, but even on the, I don't know, I don't care for them. So So this 2 months now, 2.5 months, it's probably going to turn into another 2 weeks, and then I'll probably have this guy done, and then I can knock some prints out and see what's happening with it. I'm really excited about getting it going. At least it'll be one full build instead of, you know, I mean, it's okay to mod stuff. I mean, that's how I got, you know, what I had before, is by modding the Sapphire Plus. And it's just time now to make a proper frame and see how that goes. So anyway, a lot of mistakes on this build. And here's a prime example of me not using my brain. I made these limit switch adjusters, and you know, I'm making this in my garage, and I don't have a mill to cut slots, and this slot not only is too wide, so it can kind of do this when you loosen these and try to adjust this. Even if you barely loosen it, it'll try to want to pivot on you. And what I've done in the past is, usually when you put tension on it and you just slightly loosen these, if it turns or rocks to a certain spot, you just leave it there. And then when you pull on it or push on it, it'll kind of stay there. But this one here, since it's way out here on the side, it can tilt in or out and then change the distance. So I've got to remake all my tensioners because I didn't think that through, you know, good enough. You know, they look kind of cool, but and if they were made right, they'd be better, but it's still, it needs some kind of edge over here to hold it from rotating. Even if the slot was just right, it still would move a small amount. It would be hard to adjust, and that's what these are. They're kind of hard to adjust and get exactly right, especially when you're tramming in this gantry. You'll home it on one side, you'll have your indicator mounted on here, and you'll come back across to this other side and you'll tram that rail in, and you'll be off a couple thou. So then you'll make your adjustment, you'll check it again, now you're off more, you know, and then you go back again and it's just all over the place. It just takes way too long to make a simple adjustment, and that was one of my stupido moments, and I've had lots of them with this build. So, you know, that's just the way it goes. You do stuff, you make mistakes. That's what happens. When you don't do nothing, you don't make no mistakes. So if someone says they don't make mistakes, they don't do nothing. Anyway, so that's what I got here, and you know, the aluminum, you know, I mean, this looks like a pretty extravagant nutso job here, and it pretty much is. I mean, this is 3mm aluminum, 3.15 or 1/8 inch, and I got that from the junkyard. I got a sheet. I think I got 2 sheets, 4 by 10 foot, I want to say, for $100, like 3 years ago. And I think one sheet I built an oven out of, and this other sheet I put towards the other printer that I had, and then now this printer. So I got my money out of I got my money out of it. I haven't spent a whole lot really on this frame, but I've spent a ton of time. I mean, time has been wowza. But anyway, so that's what I got. I'm still working on it. Can't wait to get something printed on here and see what's going to happen. I've already made a print with it, and it's looking good. So, but it's not in the house yet. I don't have that chamber heated up and already. So it's going to be a little bit more time, and then it'll be done. All right. Well, thanks for watching.